My wife said, "It's not like that, but I found their hotel booking for the weekend." I froze as I stared at the screen of my phone, the words glaring at me. My heart felt like it had dropped somewhere deep in my stomach. The confirmation email was right there, plain as day. I didn't even need to open it fully to see that she had booked a hotel for a weekend away. With him, the same guy I'd been worried about for months. The one she'd brushed off every time I asked if there was something going on, telling me I was just being paranoid, that she had no feelings for him anymore. But now here it was in black and white. A weekend getaway with him. The guy who she kept bumping into at work events. The one who had always been there for her. I could feel the blood draining from my face, the pulse in my temples throbbing painfully as I read over the email again. It wasn't a mistake. She'd booked the room herself, and it wasn't some random trip for a group of friends. It was a romantic getaway, private room, no roommates, with his name attached to the reservation. They were going to the coast for 2 nights. I couldn't stop staring at the screen. My mind raced to put together what I had just discovered. How could she lie to me like this? How could she pretend everything was fine between us and then go behind my back like this? I felt like my world had just been flipped upside down. The steady, predictable life we had built together suddenly felt like a lie. I was shaking now, feeling that hot, suffocating rush of panic, but I couldn't make my body move. I couldn't decide if I should confront her immediately or wait until she came home. My fingers hovered over the phone screen, but no words came. I felt sick, betrayed, like I was suffocating under the weight of something I couldn't change. We'd been married for 3 years. It hadn't always been perfect, but it had been good. Or at least I thought it had been. Lately, though, things had fell off. Small, subtle things. We'd been distant. Little arguments that never used to happen. Her work had been more demanding, she said, and I understood. We had our routines, but she started staying late at the office more often, coming home later than usual, and saying things like, "I need space," or "I'm just really busy right now." I knew she had a lot on her plate, but I started to wonder if there was more going on behind the scenes. But I tried to brush it off. I didn't want to be the insecure husband. I didn't want to ruin everything over something I couldn't prove. So I kept quiet. I trusted her. I had to. I loved her. And then there was him. I knew about him, of course. He was her old college buddy, the one she'd introduced me to a couple of times when we first started dating. But I always felt uncomfortable around him. He had this way of looking at her, this familiarity that didn't feel quite right to me. And as the months went by, I noticed how much he seemed to pop up in her conversations. She'd mention him almost nonchalantly. "Oh, Alex said this," or "Alex suggested that we try this place," as if I didn't notice the subtle but clear affection in her voice when she spoke his name. I never said anything. Maybe I should have. Maybe I should have confronted her sooner, but I kept it inside. I didn't want to come across as controlling or paranoid, so I just kept watching quietly as the distance between us grew. And now this. Now I was looking at the evidence, irrefutable evidence, that something more was going on between them. I was pacing the living room now, feeling like a caged animal. My hands were clammy, my thoughts racing too fast to catch. How could she do this? How could she lie to my face and tell me that everything was fine, that I was the only one she wanted? How could she look at me, give me that reassuring smile every night, and then sneak off with him on a weekend trip? I felt the anger building, rising like an uncontrollable wave inside of me. I wanted to scream. I wanted to call her, to confront her right now, but I didn't trust myself to speak calmly. I wasn't sure if I could hear her voice without losing it. I texted her, my fingers shaking as I typed out the words. "I know about the hotel. Are you really going to keep lying to me?" The message sat there for a moment before I pressed send. I stared at the screen, waiting for her response. But there was nothing. No immediate reply. The silence felt like it was crushing me. I stared at the clock. She was supposed to be home soon. We hadn't talked much this morning before I left for work. She seemed distracted, but I thought maybe she was just stressed. She didn't mention the trip, but then again, she probably didn't need to. She had already made plans behind my back. I didn't know what I was hoping for. Maybe a sudden revelation on her end, an apology, something that would explain everything. But deep down, I already knew the truth. I couldn't believe I had been so stupid. I had been so desperate to keep everything normal, to hold on to the love we had, that I had let myself ignore all the signs. I should have trusted my gut when it told me something was wrong. But I didn't. I just kept pretending everything was fine, kept telling myself that she loved me, that we were fine. I stood there, feeling the weight of everything crash down on me. The silence was suffocating. I didn't know how I was going to face her when she walked through the door. What was I supposed to say? Was I supposed to ask her why she was doing this? Ask her if she even cared about me? I wasn't sure I could even look her in the eye right now. When the door opened, I didn't hear the normal sound of her cheerful voice. It was almost like she knew something was wrong. She hesitated in the doorway, and I felt my heart race as I looked at her. Her eyes went to my phone, then to me, her face already turning pale. I couldn't tell if it was guilt or fear. "Chris," she started, her voice weak. I saw the booking, Kara." I cut her off, my voice colder than I wanted it to be. "I know what you're doing. I know about the weekend trip with Alex." She froze, her mouth opening and closing, as if she didn't know how to respond. She looked so caught, so exposed, but I couldn't find any sympathy for her. My head was spinning with a mixture of disbelief and fury. "I don't want to hear your excuses," I said, my voice shaking now. "You told me I was the only one. You told me we were fine. But now I find out you're going away with him? Do you have any idea how this makes me feel?" Her eyes filled with tears, and she took a shaky step forward. "Chris, I swear it's not what you think. Not what I think." I interrupted, stepping back. "Then explain it to me. What is it then? Why didn't you tell me about it? Why are you lying to me about this?" She stood there, visibly shaken, and I could see the guilt in her eyes. She knew she had lost me. The trust we had built, the foundation of our marriage, was shattered in an instant. "I never wanted to hurt you," she whispered, tears spilling down her cheeks. "But I don't know how to fix this." I didn't know how to tell you. I just shook my head, feeling a wave of anger and pain rush through me. I couldn't even hear her anymore. I couldn't hear her explanations, her apologies. It didn't matter. It was too late. "You've already made your choice," I said, my voice quiet now, broken. "You've already chosen him." And just like that, I realized I had to let go. Part 2. The silence hung in the air between us like a thick fog. Her tears stained her face, and I could see the frantic panic in her eyes as she tried to reach for me. But I couldn't move. I couldn't even bring myself to acknowledge her touch. I stood there for a moment, just breathing. The anger still burned in me, but it was mingled with something else now. A deep, aching sadness. I couldn't reconcile the woman standing in front of me with the one I had married. I couldn't even remember the last time we'd really laughed together, or when I had last felt that spark, that connection that once made everything seem so certain. Finally, I spoke, but my voice felt distant, like it was coming from somewhere else entirely. "You're really going through with this, aren't you?" Her lips trembled, but she didn't answer immediately. I didn't need her to. The truth was right there, in the open, all around us. She didn't even need to say his name for me to know what was going on. She had already made her choice. I felt a tightness in my chest, like I was suffocating. How could this be happening? How could I have missed it? I had given her everything. I had trusted her. I had given her my love, my loyalty, and this was what she had done with it. "I never meant to hurt you, Chris," she said, her voice cracking. She wiped her face with the back of her hand, as if trying to keep it together. I was confused. I didn't know how to handle everything. I never meant for this to happen." "Confused," I repeated bitterly. "You've been confused for months, Kara, and it never once occurred to you that maybe you should talk to me? Or are you just using that as an excuse now?" She shook her head, desperately trying to get through to me. "I didn't know how to talk to you. I was afraid of what I might feel when I finally admitted it. I was trying to make things work with you, because I wanted to, but—" Her voice trailed off, and I could see her mind racing, like she was trying to find the right words to make everything okay again. But I wasn't listening anymore. The truth had already sunk in, and no amount of apologies or explanations would undo what had been done. She took a step closer, but I stepped back instinctively. I couldn't let her touch me. "Not now, not like this. I thought I could be honest with you," she continued, now visibly shaking. I thought I could keep everything separate. I thought I could make this work, but I've been lying to myself for so long. I felt like I was drowning in her words, the weight of her confession pulling me under. The realization was settling in deeper now. There was no going back. So what now, Kara? I finally said, my voice barely above a whisper. You go on this trip with him? You spend the weekend with him? And then what? You come back and tell me everything's fine? You think you can just erase what's been happening? She hesitated, looking like she wanted to say something, but the words wouldn't come. She was so lost, caught up in this web she had spun, and I could see in her face. She wasn't even sure what she wanted anymore, much less how to fix what she had broken. I don't know, she whispered, finally breaking down. I don't know what to do. I don't know what I want. I closed my eyes, trying to steady my breath. The tears were starting to sting at the corners of my eyes, but I refused to let them fall. I didn't deserve to cry for this. Not anymore. I think you've already made your decision, Kara, I said, my voice shaking. You've already made your choice. I can't keep doing this. I can't keep pretending everything is fine while you're off with someone else. You're already halfway out the door, and I've been too blind to see it. Her sobs filled the room, but I couldn't let her pull me back in. I couldn't. I had to draw the line here. As much as I still loved her, I couldn't be in a relationship that was built on lies, on deceit. I couldn't keep holding on to something that had already slipped through my fingers. I turned and walked toward the door without another word. I didn't want to hear any more apologies. I didn't want to see her anymore. Not like this. Not after everything that had happened. She called out to me as I grabbed my jacket, her voice hoarse. Chris, please, don't go like this. We can fix this. I swear, I love you. I made a mistake, but we can work through this. We can figure it out. I stopped, my hand on the doorknob, but I didn't turn around. I could feel the weight of her words hanging in the air, but they didn't matter anymore. The damage had been done. She had already chosen him. She had already decided. Maybe you love me, I said quietly, still not facing her, but you've already hurt me more than I ever thought possible. And with that, I stepped out the door. I spent the next few days in a haze. I stayed at my brother's place, not knowing what else to do with myself. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw Kara's face, the tears on her cheeks, the look of guilt in her eyes. But it didn't make me want to go back. I thought it might, but it didn't. I couldn't go back to that. Not after everything she'd done. I didn't want to feel like the fool anymore. I didn't want to be the one who accepted half-hearted apologies and promises that everything would be okay. I spent those days going through the motions, pretending to be okay, trying to clear my head. I took long walks, kept busy, but nothing could erase the truth that had sunk in. Kara was no longer the woman I had married. She had become someone else, someone who had already made the choice to step out of our marriage and into something with him. By the time I finally went back to our apartment, the place that had once felt like home, it didn't feel like mine anymore. It felt foreign, cold. I hadn't realized until now just how much I had been clinging to the idea of her, to the idea of us. But that wasn't enough anymore. I couldn't keep waiting for someone who had already moved on. I couldn't keep holding on to a dream that was no longer real. The next few weeks were a blur. Kara called me, texted me, begged me to talk. But each time I heard her voice, I felt a little more detached, a little more certain that I was doing the right thing by walking away. One afternoon, I gathered up all the things she had left behind, the little reminders of the life we had shared, the photos, the small trinkets, the memories. I put them in a box and set it by the door. I didn't want to remember what we had anymore because all I saw when I looked at those things was a lie. I left that box outside her door, knowing I couldn't keep anything that tied me to a past that was no longer mine. It wasn't the clean break I had hoped for, but it was the only way forward. And as much as it hurt to admit, I knew I was better off without her. I had to learn to move on, to heal. And most of all, I had to learn how to trust myself again.